You weren't supposed to shoot her. Well, I missed.
Right now, there's a lot of chatter online about Amazon's big move with the James Bond franchise. Some people are convinced this is the perfect opportunity to finally see a female 007, while others are more focused on whether Denis Villeneuve's upcoming Bond 26 will lean toward a grounded spy thriller or something more unexpected, like a sci-fi adventure. Since there's a mix of excitement and confusion, it's worth breaking down what we actually know about the future of Bond and what could realistically happen with the franchise. Even though Bond 26 is still in the very early stages of production, that hasn't stopped fans from speculating. The Amazon takeover of the franchise has opened up so many possibilities, and the timing feels significant because the culture around James Bond is changing. Sure, there are voices like Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren who've recently said Bond should always stay male, but more people are open to the idea of experimenting with a female 007 than ever before. Historically, every Bond actor has been a man. From Sean Connery to Daniel Craig, the formula has always been similar: charming, smooth, and confident, with just the right balance of grit and glamour to embody Ian Fleming's legendary spy. For decades, that template never really shifted. But with Amazon stepping in and wanting to bring Bond into a brand new era, those old rules don't necessarily feel set in stone anymore. This is where things get interesting. Amazon has the reach and resources to do more than just release a film every few years. With Amazon Prime Video in the picture, Bond doesn't need to be limited to the big screen alone. There's room for spin-offs, prequels, limited series, and smaller side projects that dig into parts of the universe that the main films never had time to explore. That naturally creates space for bold experiments, like finally giving us a female 007. Of course, for decades, casting a woman in the lead role was seen as almost impossible, mostly because of the backlash it would have sparked. But the landscape is different now. Amazon doesn't have to go all in by making the central movie Bond female. They could test the waters with a smaller series or side project where the stakes are lower financially but still high enough to make waves. Audiences could keep their traditional male Bond for the main franchise, while a new female lead takes the spotlight in an original spin-off. That's actually a pretty clever compromise because it pushes Bond into a new era without alienating longtime fans. Sure, there will always be criticism, there always is, but avoiding fresh ideas just to appease tradition risks keeping the franchise stuck in the past. We've already seen how other major series have made the leap. Take Ballerina, for instance, which shows how female-led action stories can succeed, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has put women front and center in billion-dollar films. If those franchises can take risks and thrive, then Bond can too. And it's not just about the female Bond idea. Amazon's acquisition means the creative field is wide open. Imagine prequels showing Bond's early MI6 days, or spin-offs centered on beloved supporting characters like M or Felix Leiter. The flexibility of TV means Amazon can finally do what previous producers never could: expand the Bond universe in a way that feels modern and diverse without gambling everything on one giant blockbuster. That said, it's still pretty unlikely Amazon will go all in on a female James Bond right at the start of their run. Launching a new era of the franchise comes with a lot of pressure, and the studio has to prove that it can handle Bond responsibly. Jumping straight into a controversial decision could alienate the fan base before the franchise even has a chance to find its footing. If anything, it looks like Amazon wants to play things a bit safer for Bond 26. Reports about their casting shortlist suggest they're mainly looking at younger male actors who can fit into the traditional Bond mold. That's not the big push for diversity that some fans were hoping for, but it's also the most reliable way to relaunch the brand. Once the audience feels confident again, Amazon could start layering in more experimental concepts. So, in the short term, a female Bond may not happen, but it doesn't mean the idea is off the table forever. It just makes sense for Amazon to reintroduce Bond in a familiar way first, then pivot to fresher directions later. After all, the franchise is still in its baby stages with Amazon. Nobody has been cast for Bond 26 yet, and the script is still being written. There's a bunch of time left before we know exactly how bold or cautious Amazon is willing to be. And then there's Denis Villeneuve, the director confirmed to take on Bond 26. The big question is, will he stick to a grounded spy story, or will he surprise everyone by leaning into his sci-fi background? On paper, it seems obvious because Villeneuve isn't known for playing it safe. His career highlights, Prisoners, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune, prove that he thrives on ambitious, bold projects. That's why his name is exciting for Bond in the first place. But even though he's the director, it's worth remembering that Bond has always been heavily shaped by producers. For decades, the Broccoli family guided the creative direction. Now, with Amazon calling the shots, Villeneuve might not get the same kind of freedom he's used to. The executives want to show fans that they'll respect Bond's legacy, and that could push them to keep Bond 26 on safer, more familiar ground. Still, there's a chance Villeneuve takes a risk. Bond 26 could very well turn out to be more experimental than expected, depending on how much leeway Amazon is willing to give him. But the safer bet is that it'll be a grounded spy thriller. That idea lines up with both Villeneuve's earlier work and the writing style of Stephen Knight, who is confirmed to be handling the screenplay. Knight's known for character-driven, gritty storytelling, like with Peaky Blinders, so it feels natural that Bond 26 will be cut from the same cloth. When people think of Villeneuve's potential Bond, they often bring up his film Sicario. It's a tense, realistic crime thriller about an FBI agent drawn into the war on drugs, and its tone feels very similar to some of the best Bond stories. If Bond 26 follows that style, it could be one of the most serious and hard-hitting depictions of 007 we've ever seen. And given how successful the grittier Daniel Craig films like Casino Royale, Skyfall, and No Time to Die turned out, Amazon may feel confident doubling down on realism. But because Villeneuve has made so many science fiction films in recent years, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and the Dune saga, some people wonder if he might push Bond into sci-fi territory. At first glance, it sounds absurd. Bond in space? That almost feels like parody. But then again, it's not like it hasn't been done before. The 1979 movie Moonraker actually took Bond into space as a direct response to Star Wars popularity. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.